December 20th, 1943. The air over East Anglia smells of frost and burned aviation fuel. Staff Sergeant Jack Turner stands beneath the belly of his B-17G, Lucky Bell, and runs a gloved hand across cold aluminum skin scarred from previous missions. The bomber crouches on the hard stand at RAF Kimbolton like a patient draft horse olive, drab paint dull beneath a gray winter sky. For right R1A2 of Cyclone engines hang silent for now, their propellers locked in stillness. Turner is 23 years old, waist gunner, 379th Bomb Group. He has flown 12 missions over Germany, 12 times through Flak and fighters, 12 times watching fortresses fall out of formation in flames. He does not look up when the briefing officer pins the red thread across the map inside the Nissen hut. He already knows where they're going. The silence in the room says it all. Deep inside the Reich, Bremen, ball-bearing works, the major says, expect heavy flak. Fighters likely from Munster. No one asks questions. Turner feels the folded letter in his breast pocket. He hasn't mailed it. He keeps meaning to rewrite it, make it sound braver than he feels. Engines roar to life one by one. The vibration moves through the concrete and into his boots. Propellers blur into silver discs. The smell of oil and exhaust thickens the air. Inside the aircraft, the world narrows to metal and noise. The fuselage trembles as they taxi. Turner checks his .50 caliber Browning. Feeds the belt through gloved fingers. The ammunition is cold, each round a promise. At 9:12, Lucky Bell lifts from English soil and climbs into a sky the color of tarnished steel. One by one, other fortresses join them, dozens forming a slow, deliberate river of bombers heading east across the North Sea. At 20,000 feet, the temperature falls to 30 below zero. Frost creeps across the inside of the plexiglass. Turner flexes his fingers to keep feeling in them. His oxygen mask hisses with every breath. Bandits, 12 o'clock high. The top turret gunner calls over interphone. They haven't even reached the coast of Germany. Black puffs of flak begin to bloom ahead, dark flowers opening in the sky. The formation tightens. Turner presses his cheek to the cold metal of the waist window, scanning the horizon. Then he sees them. Messerschmitt Bf 109s, thin and fast, slicing down from the sun. Yellow noses flashing, cannons glinting. The sky explodes into motion. Tracers arc past his window, green and red streaks crossing in deadly geometry. A fortress to their left jerks violently as flak tears through its wing. Smoke pours from an engine. Turner squeezes his trigger. The Browning bucks against his shoulder. Brass casings spill across the floor like rain. A German fighter flashes past so close he sees the pilot's goggles. And then, a thunderclap of impact. The entire aircraft lurches sideways as something massive slams into them midair. Metal screams. The floor beneath Turner drops away. For one terrible second, the scream of tearing aluminum drowns out the engines. Jack Turner is thrown against the waist bulkhead as the B-17 shudders violently. The interphone explodes with overlapping voices. Midair, midair. God, we hit somebody. Number 3's out. The aircraft banks hard to port. Loose casings slide across the floor, skittering toward a jagged gap where the fuselage used to be smooth skin. Turner grabs the frame of the waist window and forces himself upright. The cold hits him instantly, raw, merciless. The slipstream claws into the cabin through a fresh wound torn open behind him. He looks back. Another B-17 is there, not falling away, not spinning, embedded. The nose of a second fortress has punched up into Lucky Bell's lower fuselage from beneath and slightly behind, locking the two bombers together in a grotesque embrace of bent aluminum and splintered spars. The plexiglass of the other aircraft's nose is shattered. Its bombardier compartment is crushed into Turner's own radio room. Two bombers, one broken shape. The formation around them scatters to avoid the collision. A third B-17 passes so close its wingtip nearly clips Turner's window. Who is it? Someone shouts over the interphone. The radio operator, bleeding from his scalp, forces himself toward the tangled wreckage. It's the Barrelhouse Queen, 303rd Group. Turner edges closer, heart hammering. Through torn metal he sees a face. A young man in an aide jacket, oxygen mask ripped away, eyes wide with shock. He's hanging in his harness upside down inside what remains of his nose compartment. The other plane's pilot must still be alive. The engines of both aircraft are screaming at full power, fighting gravity, but gravity is winning. Altimeter needle unwinds 18,000 feet. The combined weight drags them downward. One propeller on Lucky Bell spins uselessly, blades bent like twisted forks. Hydraulic fluid sprays in a fine mist across the interior. Prepare to bail out, the pilot orders. His voice is steady, but Turner hears the edge beneath it. Turner looks at the open sky through the torn fuselage. He has bailed out once in training. He knows what 18,000 feet in winter air feels like. He knows the flak still bursts around them. He also knows the men trapped in the nose of the other fortress cannot get out, not with their plane impaled through his. The descent continues 16,000 feet. A German fighter streaks past, hesitates. The pilot clearly sees what has happened. Two bombers fuse together like some impossible machine. The fighter does not fire. He banks away. Inside the wrecked metal shell, both American crews are now breathing the same freezing air. Turner, the pilot, calls. Status in the waist. Jack swallows. He looks at the dangling crewman from the other plane. The man's lips move. Turner cannot hear him. Sir, Turner answers, voice shaking but controlled. We're still in one piece. He doesn't know if that's true. Below them, Germany rises through a haze of smoke and winter cloud. 15,000 feet, the vibration changes. It is no longer the smooth thunder of synchronized engines. It is uneven, strained. One of Lucky Bell's cyclones coughs black smoke, the propeller windmilling uselessly. From below, the trapped B-17 barrel house. Queen is still pushing upward with two engines at full power. The sound blends into a violent mechanical roar that feels alive, angry. Jack Turner forces himself closer to the torn seam where the two aircraft meet. The slipstream claws at his jacket. Frost forms instantly on exposed metal. Can you hear me? He shouts through the gap. The trapped bombardier nods weakly. Blood drifts across his forehead, already freezing at the edges. Behind him, deeper in the crushed nose section, Turner glimpses movement. The pilot of the lower aircraft, helmet on, oxygen mask secured, struggles against bent controls. His gloved hands are still on the yoke, still flying. Two separate crews, two aircraft, somehow airborne. Over the interphone, Lucky Bell's pilot speaks calmly. We're trying to stabilize. Don't bail yet. The word hangs in the air. Don't. 14,000 feet. The combined mass shudders again. Something structural groans beneath Turner's boots. He feels it through the solace like a ship flexing in heavy seas. The nose of the lower bomber shifts a few inches. Metal grinds against metal. If it slips free, they will both tumble. Hydraulics are gone. The co-pilot reports. She's heavy on the stick. Turner glances outside. The sky around them has cleared. The bomber formation is gone, swallowed by distance. Only thin streaks of contrails remain. They are alone over Germany. Below, he can see fields white with frost, divided by dark tree lines. Small villages like scattered toys. The bombardier from the lower aircraft tries to unclip his harness. The movement shifts the wreckage again. Turner reaches through the torn opening and grabs the man's sleeve. Easy, he says. Don't move fast. The man nods. His eyes are glassy but focused. Suddenly, a new sound. Whine shrieking through a widening crack. The forward fuselage of Lucky Bell has split along a seam near the radio room. A jagged line races upward, tearing fabric insulation loose. Jack, the radio operator, yells. It's opening up. Turner looks at the sky through a gap that wasn't there a second ago. The aircraft is coming apart piece by piece. 12,500 feet. The lower pilot does something unexpected. He increases throttle. The engines of barrel house Queen surge. The nose lifts slightly. The grinding pressure between the two aircraft shifts. For the first time since the collision, the descent slows. Turner feels it. The altimeter needle hesitates. Both pilots are fighting the same gravity now. Not enemies, not even strangers, just two men refusing to let steel give way. Then the tail gunner's voice cuts through the interphone. Fighters returning. 6 o'clock low. Turner turns toward the waist window. Three dark shapes are climbing toward them from below. 12,000 feet. The Messerschmitts climb fast. Jack Turner sees their dark crosses clearly now. Wings rocking as they line up beneath the crippled mass of the two bombers fused together. They are not attacking a formation anymore. They are hunting a wounded animal. Gunners ready. Lucky Bell's pilot orders. His voice is steady, but the interphone crackles with strain. Turner swings his twin 50s downward through the waist window. The wind tears at his oxygen hose. The cold burns his cheeks raw. He forces himself to breathe slow. Don't spray. The first BF-109 opens fire. Yellow tracer streaks upward, stitching across the belly of the lower aircraft. Sparks burst from aluminum. A round punches through the fuselage inches from Turner's knee. He squeezes the trigger. The Browning's hammer in controlled bursts. Brass shells spill across the torn floor and vanish through the open seam into the sky. Across the wreckage, a gunner from barrel house. Queen half visible through mangled metal fires as well. His single .50 chatters in ragged rhythm. They do not speak, but they fire together. One of the German fighters pulls up to steep. Turner tracks it, leads slightly, squeezes. Tracers arc forward and connect. The The Messerschmitt jerks violently. Smoke erupts from its engine cowling. It rolls inverted and dives away, trailing flame. The second fighter presses in from 6 o'clock low. Cannon shells slam into the tail of Lucky Bell. The entire structure vibrates. Turner hears the tail gunner shout something cut off abruptly by static. Tails hit. No response. Someone yells. The third fighter breaks, through flak remnants and lines up directly. Beneath the fused nose sections, it fires upward. Plexiglass explodes from the lower bomber's cockpit. Turner sees the pilot of Barrelhouse Queen recoil but keep his hands on the controls. Blood streaks down one side of his face. The engines still roar, still holding them aloft. Altitude, 10,500 feet. The combined aircraft shudders again. The stress of gunfire and gravity pulls at every rivet. The seam between the two bombers groans like a splitting tree. Jack, the co-pilot shouts, "If she breaks, get clear. Clear." There is nowhere clear to go. The lower plane blocks the bomb bay doors. The fuselage behind him is torn open. The sky below is enemy territory. The second Messerschmitt climbs directly toward Turner's waist window. Nose-mounted cannon flashing. Turner waits until the last possible second. Then he fires. The recoil slams into his shoulders. The German fighter fills his sights, close enough to see the pilots. Jaw clenched tight, rounds tear through the fighter's wing root. It shears off violently, spiraling downward in a tight corkscrew of smoke. Silence follows. No more fighters. Only wind. Only the engines of two broken bombers still defying gravity. But the altimeter reads 9,000 feet now. And below them, fields and forests are no longer distant shapes. They are rushing closer. 9,000 feet. The ground is no longer an abstraction. Jack Turner can see individual tree lines, now dark veins across pale winter. Fields, farmhouses, high, narrow road cutting between them. Germany feels close enough to touch. Inside Lucky Bell, the air smells of cordite, hydraulic fluid, and something metallic blood. Tail gunner's gone. The co-pilot says quietly over interphone. No emotion, just fact. Turner doesn't answer. He keeps scanning the sky. The fighters have broken off. Perhaps they think the job is already done. Perhaps they are low on fuel. It doesn't matter. The bigger enemy now is gravity. 8,500 feet. The lower aircraft shifts again. The nose of Barrelhouse Queen grinds downward against Lucky Bell's bomb bay structure. A loud crack splits through the fuselage. Turner feels it in his ribs. The bombardier from below is still trapped, half hanging in twisted plexiglass. His eyes meet Turner's. Calm now. Not panic. Something else. Acceptance. Pilot says. The bombardier shouts weakly through the gap. He's trying to separate. Separate. Turner looks down at the tangled metal locking the two fortresses together. If the lower plane drops free too violently, it could rip the belly out of Lucky Bell. If it stays locked, both aircraft will hit together. No good options. Inside the cockpit above, Lucky Bell's pilot makes a decision. All crew, he says, voice steady. Prepare to bail out on my command. We'll try to give them space. Turner checks his parachute harness. His gloves shake, but his hands move automatically. Training takes over. Altitude, 7,000 feet. The lower pilot throttles back suddenly. The roar from beneath diminishes. For a brief second, the entire fused structure lurches downward. Then, a violent metallic scream. The nose of Barrelhouse Queen tears free in a shower of rivets and shredded aluminum. The separation is not clean. It rips through Lucky Bell's bomb bay doors, tearing them off entirely. Turner is thrown to the floor as the lower B-17 drops away beneath them. He scrambles to the open gap. Below, he sees the other bomber falling nose first at first, then, impossibly, leveling slightly. One wing is half shorn. Smoke pours from two engines, but it is not tumbling. It is gliding. The trapped bombardier is still inside. The pilot still at the controls. God help them. Someone whispers. Lucky Bell is lighter now but mortally wounded. The entire underside is open to the air. Wind tears through the fuselage like a hurricane. Bail out. Bail out. The pilot orders. 6,000 feet. Turner moves toward the open bomb bay cavity. The earth below is frighteningly clear. Fields, a river bend, a cluster of red-roofed houses. He hesitates 1 second too long. Behind him, the left wing root explodes in flame. Fuel ignites. The bomber shudders violently, banking hard to port. Turner knows this is the moment. He steps into empty sky. The cold hits like a hammer. Jack Turner tumbles through open air. The roar of engines replaced by the violent rush of wind tearing at his body. For a second, there is no up or down, only spinning sky and flashing earth. He forces himself to remember training. Arch your back. Count. 1001, 1002, 1003. He pulls the D-ring. The parachute snaps open with a brutal jolt that wrenches his shoulders. The world slams still. Silence rushes in, broken only by the distant echo of engines and a dull explosion somewhere above. He looks up. The silk canopy is intact, white against gray sky. Below him, Germany spreads out in winter stillness. Snow-dusted fields, thin roads, a frozen stream winding through farmland. It looks peaceful from here, almost gentle. Then he sees it. To the west, Lucky Bell is descending in a slow spiral, left wing burning bright. A trail of black smoke stains the sky. For a moment, it seems almost graceful. Then the wing folds. The bomber rolls and drops out of sight behind a stand of trees. Seconds later, a muted fireball blossoms above the horizon. Turner watches it, unable to look away. 12 missions survived, not 13. He forces his gaze elsewhere. Farther off lower now he spots the other aircraft. Barrelhouse Queen. It is barely flying. One wing bent, tail section shredded, engines coughing smoke. But it is still gliding, not spinning, not falling. He sees it skim treetops, then disappear beyond a ridge. No explosion, just gone. Turner's boots touch earth hard. He collapses into frozen soil, dragging the chute down before wind can carry him. His breath fogs in short bursts. The silence feels enormous after the sky's violence. Then voices, shouting in German. He looks up. Across the field, figures are running toward him. Farmers at first dark coats, caps pulled low. Then behind them, uniformed men, Wehrmacht soldiers with rifles slung over shoulders. He considers running. The field is open. No cover for hundreds of yards. His sidearm is still in its holster, useless against a squad. He stands slowly instead, raises his hands. A young German soldier approaches cautiously, rifle aimed but not shaking. He cannot be older than 19. His cheeks are red from cold. His eyes are wide not with hatred, but disbelief. Two bombers colliding in the sky is not something taught in manuals. The soldier stops a few paces away. "Amerikaner?" he asks. Turner nods once. The German lowers the rifle slightly, studying him like something that fell from another planet. In the distance, smoke rises from where Lucky Bell died, and somewhere beyond the ridge, the other bomber rests unseen. Alive or dead, Turner does not know. But he knows one thing. The sky did not finish the story. Germany will. The rifle barrel nudges Jack Turner between the shoulder blades. Not hard, just enough. "Gehen," the young German soldier says. "Move." Turner walks across the frozen field with his hands raised, parachute silk dragging behind him like a surrender flag. Each step feels unreal. Only minutes ago he was at 20,000 feet, metal screaming around him. Now there is only crunching frost under boots and the distant bark of a farm dog. They take his .45 first, then his gloves. One soldier pats him down methodically, professional, not cruel. Turner notices the man's sleeve bears the infantry green piping of the Wehrmacht, not SS black. That matters, though he doesn't know how much. A truck waits on the road, a gray Opel Blitz with mud-caked tires. Its engine idles softly. As they lead him toward it, Turner sees smoke rising beyond the ridge to the east, not a towering fireball, not a burning wreck. A thin column, controlled. His pulse quickens. The soldier notices his gaze and follows it. He says something sharp in German to another man. They exchange looks. Turner cannot understand the words, but he understands the tone. Confusion, urgency. They push him into the back of the truck. Two guards climb in beside him. The wooden bed smells of oil and wet canvas. The tailgate slams shut. The truck lurches forward. As they crest the ridge, Turner finally sees it. Barrelhouse Queen lies in a frozen field below. Nose crushed, tail twisted, one wing nearly torn off. The landing is a miracle and a catastrophe in equal measure. The aircraft has plowed through earth and snow, carving a scar, nearly 200 yards long before stopping against a line of bare trees. But it did not explode. German soldiers surround the wreckage. Some are firing into the fuselage. Others are shouting. A few stand back, uncertain. Turner grips the side rail of the truck, the bombardier he saw trapped. The pilot with blood on his face. Were they alive when they hit? The truck slows near the crash site. Turner sees movement at the shattered cockpit window. A figure trying to crawl out. A shot cracks. The figure slumps. Turner's stomach tightens. He forces himself not to react, not to shout. One of the guards beside him watches the scene with a hard expression. The younger soldier looks away. The truck does not stop. It continues past the wreckage toward a small village. Church steeple, stone houses, civilians standing in doorways, staring. Turner lowers his eyes. Not in shame. In survival, they drive him to a makeshift holding point, an old brick schoolhouse, now marked with a white flag bearing a black cross, a temporary collection station for captured airmen. Inside, the air smells of damp wood and coal smoke. Another American sits against the wall, flight jacket torn, face bruised. The man looks up slowly. Bell, he asks hoarsely. Turner swallows. Gone, he says. A long silence fills the room. Outside, boots move briskly. Orders shouted. The war has shifted from sky to. The schoolhouse windows are painted over in dull gray, blocking out most of the winter light. Jack Turner sits against a cracked plaster wall, hands resting loosely on his knees. His flight jacket is stiff with frozen sweat. Across from him, the other American Airman Technical Sergeant Miller, ball turret gunner, leans back with his eyes half closed. His right cheek is swollen purple. Neither man speaks for several minutes. Outside, boots crunch across gravel. A truck engine revs. Somewhere down the corridor, a door slams. Finally, Miller opens his eyes. You see the other one? He asked quietly. Turner nods once. They put her down. Crash. Hard. Miller studies him carefully. Anyone walk away? Turner hesitates. He sees again the cockpit window, the figure trying to crawl free. The single rifle shot. I don't know, he says. It is the only honest answer he can give. The door opens abruptly. A German sergeant steps in, gray tunic crisp, iron cross ribbon in his buttonhole. His expression is tired rather than cruel. You will be moved, he says in careful English. Interrogation. WWII Luft. Turner knows the name. Transit camp for captured Allied airmen near Frankfurt. Intelligence officers. Questions about units, tactics, bomb loads. He nods. They are marched outside into the brittle afternoon air. The sky is clear now, almost bright, too calm for what it has witnessed. As they pass the edge of the village, Turner sees civilians gathered near the ridge. Some stare silently. A few women whisper among themselves. One older woman makes the sign of the cross as he walks by. Then something unexpected. Two German military nurses stand beside a field ambulance near the road. Their gray cloaks are dusted with snow. Red cross armbands bright against wool. Behind them, on stretchers laid across the frozen ground, American airmen, alive. Turner's pulse surges. He cannot stare too long, but he counts quickly. 1, 2, 3. One of them has a bandaged head, blood seeping through white gauze. The face is swollen but conscious. It is the pilot from the lower bomber. Their eyes meet for half a second. Recognition flickers there to men who shared the same sky. The same impossible moment. A German nurse adjusts the pilot's blanket gently, not roughly, not with contempt. The war feels complicated in that instant. The guard pushes Turner forward. The moment breaks. They load the prisoners into a covered truck. Canvas flaps drop closed, sealing out the view. Darkness inside smells of damp wool and fear. As the engine starts and the truck begins the long drive south, Turner leans back against the wooden slats. The pilot of Barrel House Queen is alive, but alive in enemy hands. And somewhere in that twisted wreckage lies the story of how two bombers refused to fall alone. Interrogation will come next. And in Germany, survival is no longer about altitude. It is about silence. The truck smells of wet canvas and diesel. Jack Turner sits wedged between two other American prisoners as the vehicle rattles south toward Frankfurt. Every bump in the road sends a dull ache through his shoulders where the parachute harness had snapped him open. No one speaks at first. Silence feels safer. Hours pass. The winter light fades behind the canvas flaps. By the time they arrive at WWII Luft, night has settled over the compound. Barbed wire fences glint under floodlights. Guard towers loom against a pale sky. The place is efficient, not theatrical. This is not a frontline prison. It is a machine designed for information. Turner is separated from Miller at the intake desk. Personal items are cataloged. His dog tags are examined but returned. Name, rank, serial number. He repeats them evenly. They place him alone in a small, heated room. A wooden chair, a table, a single bulb overhead, too comfortable to be accidental. After several minutes, the door opens. A Luftwaffe officer enters, captain's bars on his shoulder boards, flight badge above his breast pocket. His English is precise, almost academic. Staff Sergeant Turner, he says, sitting across from him. You flew from England this morning. Turner says nothing. The officer folds his gloves neatly on the table. Two aircraft collided. Very unusual. We have witnesses. Turner keeps his eyes steady. We are not interested in secrets tonight, the officer continues calmly. Only facts. How did the lower aircraft maintain control? It is not a question about bombs or routes. It is professional curiosity. Pilot to airman. Turner answers as trained. Name, rank, serial number. The officer studies him. Not anger. Something like reluctant respect. You Americans are stubborn, he says quietly. The pilot of the second aircraft, he survived the landing. Badly injured. He asked about your crew. Turner's heartbeat quickens, but his face does not change. He insisted. The officer continues. That your pilot increased power to help him separate. Turner remembers the moment, the sudden shift in pressure, the violent tear, the choice made in a cockpit filled with fire and fear. He says nothing. The officer stands. War is strange, he says softly. Sometimes enemies cooperate without speaking. He pauses at the door. Rest tonight. Tomorrow we try again. When the door closes, the silence feels heavier than before. Turner leans back in the chair. He thinks of the pilot in the ambulance, of the bombardier trapped upside down in freezing air, of the tail gunner who never answered. Two bombers became one for a few impossible minutes over Germany, not by design, not by heroics meant for headlines, but by men holding controls steady when every instinct screamed to abandon them. Outside his small window, the searchlight sweeps slowly across the winter sky, the same sky that held them both, and somewhere in the compound infirmary. Morning comes quietly at WWII Luft. Frost clings to the inside of the barracks window when Jack Turner wakes on a narrow cot. For a moment, he forgets where he is. Then he hears the distant clang of a gate and the sharp bark of German commands. Memory returns in fragments: collision, fire, parachute silk snapping open. And the pilot. After roll call, Turner is marched across the compound yard. Gravel crunches beneath boots in disciplined rhythm. The air smells of coal smoke and disinfectant. Instead of interrogation, they lead him toward a low brick building marked with a red cross. The infirmary. A guard opens the door. Inside, the room is quiet except for the slow ticking of a wall clock. Beds line both sides, some occupied by Allied airmen, others by German ground crew injured in unrelated accidents. War does not sort its wounded by allegiance. At the far end, propped up against pillows, sits the pilot of Barrelhouse Queen. His face is pale beneath bruises. A bandage wraps his forehead. His left arm is in a sling, but his eyes are clear. The guard gestures for Turner to step closer. For a moment, neither man speaks. They recognize each other not by name, but by shared altitude. "You're from the Bell," the pilot says finally. His voice is rough but steady. Turner nods. "Waist gunner." A faint smile touches the pilot's mouth. "Figured. You boys held her steady." Turner shakes his head slightly. "You pushed us up when we were dropping." The pilot exhales slowly, as if replaying it. "Didn't want to take you with us." It is said simply. No drama. Just fact. Turner studies him. "Why didn't you bail?" The pilot looks toward the window, where pale sunlight filters through frosted glass. "My bombardier was pinned. If I rolled her, he was done." A silence stretches between them. Both men understand what that means. Footsteps approach. The Luftwaffe captain from the night before stands near the doorway, observing quietly, not interrupting, just listening. The pilot turns back to Turner. "Name's Lieutenant Harris," he says. "Next time, try not to ram me." Turner almost laughs. It catches in his throat instead. "There won't be a next time," he says. Harris nods. He knows that too. The guard signals that the visit is over. Turner steps back. As he reaches the door, Harris calls after him. "We stayed in the air," he says. "That's something." Turner pauses, looks back once. "Yes, sir," he answers quietly. "It is." Outside, the winter sky stretches cold and empty above the wire. Two bombers had become one over Germany. Now two airmen sit, behind fences on the same side of captivity, alive because neither man chose the easy escape at 12,000 feet, and somewhere beyond the compound, the war continues to climb into that same sky. February 1944. Snow presses low against the barbed wire of Stalag Luft 3. The wind cuts across the compound in long, merciless sweeps, rattling the wooden barracks like thin bones. Staff Sergeant Jack Turner stands in line for morning roll call, boots sunk slightly into packed frost. Around him, hundreds of Allied airmen stand in silence. Americans, British, Canadians, faces hollowed by winter, eyes still sharp. Across the yard, in another formation, Lieutenant Harris stands with his arm healed enough to move, though the sling is gone. A faint scar runs across his temple where plexiglass once shattered. They do not speak during roll. They don't need to. News travels fast in a prison camp, stories even faster. The tale of the B-17s, fused together at 20,000 feet, has grown in retelling. Some say they locked wingtip to wingtip. Others swear they flew miles that way, engines roaring in defiance. Turner never corrects them. The truth is strange enough. After roll call, Turner returns to Barracks 104. Inside, the stove burns low. Men cluster around a crude wooden table, sketching aircraft silhouettes from memory, planning escape routes that may never be used, keeping minds sharp. Harris steps inside quietly. The room stills for a moment. Rank means little here. Survival means more. He nods at Turner. "Mind if I join you?" Turner gestures to an empty crate. They sit side by side, not as pilot and gunner now, but as prisoners with the same horizon of wire. You ever think about it? Harris asks softly. Every night, Turner replies. Harris stares into the stove's small flame. If I'd cut power sooner, we both might have gone down cleaner. Turner shakes his head. If you'd cut power sooner, we'd have split apart at 15,000 feet, both spinning. No chutes. Harris considers that. Nods once. Outside, a German guard walks past the window, rifle slung casually. The war feels distant here, muted to paperwork and rations. But beyond these fences, bombers still climb from England every morning. Engines still roar toward the Reich. Two aircraft became one for a few impossible minutes. Not because of strategy, not because of orders, because in the thin air above Germany, two crews chose not to abandon each other to gravity. Turner steps outside as afternoon light fades. He looks up at the pale sky. Empty, but he can still hear it, the grinding metal, the engines straining together, the moment when separation meant survival. Behind him, Harris joins him at the wire. We'll fly again, Harris says quietly. Turner doesn't answer right away. He watches a lone cloud drift east. Yeah, he says finally. We will. Above the frozen camp, the sky remains vast and indifferent. But somewhere, in its endless gray, the memory of two bombers refusing to fall alone still hangs, proof that even in war, survival can be shared.